I want you to just take a second and look at your hands. Just look at your fingers.
It's a good place to start.
Right. Because for your entire life, those fingers, along with, your voice, they've been your primary bridge to the digital world. You tap a glass screen, you strike a plastic key.
Or you speak into a microphone.
Exactly. When we look at the whole trajectory of human history, we've basically always measured our progress by the tools we can reach out and touch. The stone axe, the printing press, the smartphone.
There's always been a physical separation.
Yes, the boundary has always been incredibly clear. The tool is out there in your hand and you are in here inside your mind. But we are examining a profound shift today. In this deep dive, we're looking at how the era of interacting with machines through external manipulation, typing, swiping, speaking, is coming to a silent end. We are crossing the threshold into the age of the brain-computer interface, the BCI.
And it really is a transition that redefines the entire architecture of the human being. I mean, for hundreds of thousands of years, that biological boundary you just mentioned between the user and the tool, it's been absolute.
Right.
But the brain-computer interface dissolves that perimeter entirely. We're moving away from external manipulation, and we are entering an era where we physically merge with our technology. We're integrating it directly into our neural pathways.
Okay, let's unpack this. Or rather, let's unpack this because to truly grasp the gravity of this leap, we have to completely reimagine our relationship with our devices.
We really do.
Think about your current smartphone. Think about everything it connects you to. It's virtually all the world's knowledge, global navigation, instant communication with literally anyone on Earth. Now imagine taking that physical device out of your hand and dissolving it into an invisible, silent organ tucked deep inside your own brain.
It becomes a part of your anatomy.
Yeah, it's no longer an object you look at. It's an infrastructure you think through.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to explore the mechanics and the reality of this integration.
Yeah.
We have to ask the big question, why are we doing this? Why are we bypassing the flesh entirely?
Well, to understand the why, we have to look really objectively at the severe limitations of our current biological hardware. Because the human body is fundamentally a bottleneck.
A bottleneck.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the human brain operates at just this astonishing level of complexity. You have roughly 86 billion neurons firing in parallel.
Wow.
You experience multidimensional concepts, highly detailed visual memories, complex emotional states, and you do all of that in a fraction of a millisecond. But when you want to communicate that infinite complexity to a machine or even to another person, you hit a massive biological speed limit.
So I have to push it all down my spinal cord and, into my thumbs. Precisely. You have to take this incredibly rich, multidimensional thought and compress it. You translate it into a linear sequence of words, send a slow electrical signal down to your peripheral nervous system, and then physically strike a keyboard, one letter at a time.
It's agonizing when you actually think about it like that.
It is.
Yeah.
Even speaking is constrained by the sheer physical mechanics of your vocal cords, your tongue, your jaw. It is an excruciatingly slow, lossy process. Your brain processes information at bandwidths we measure in terabytes, but your physical output is limited to, at best, a few dozen bytes per second.
Right.
So in the context of the artificial intelligence we are currently building, typing and speaking are evolutionary bottlenecks. They leave human intelligence stranded in the slow lane.
I mean, I understand the math there, absolutely. But I do have to push back a little on the idea that this bottleneck is entirely a flaw. Well, there is a certain cognitive benefit to that friction, isn't there? The physical act of writing, the cadence of speaking out loud, it forces us to filter ourselves. It forces us to pace our thoughts, to edit our raw impulses before they actually become actions in the real world.
That's a fair point.
Right, so when we bypass the body entirely just to match the speed of a machine, aren't we losing that necessary buffer? Is this purely about removing a barrier, or are we accidentally discarding a mechanism that keeps us grounded?
That is the essential tension we are navigating right now. I mean, friction provides a cognitive filter, yes. But the intelligent systems we're interacting with, advanced AI and very soon artificial general intelligence, they do not operate with friction.
They're instantaneous.
Exactly. To remain relevant, to effectively communicate with systems that process information millions of times faster than biological tissue, the buffer simply must be removed. We are discarding the physical interface to achieve true, seamless bandwidth.
But to understand the sheer weight of that, we have to look closely at how we are physically bypassing the flesh. Because the evolution of these devices, it didn't begin as some, cyberpunk quest for ultimate speed.
No, not at all.
It began in a much more grounded human place. Profound medical healing. The origin of the brain-computer interface is deeply rooted in restorative medicine.
It really is. We were initially looking at patients with severe paralysis or spinal cord injuries, neurodegenerative diseases.
To people with ALS, for example.
Yes, individuals who were locked entirely inside their own bodies with absolutely no physical way to interact with the outside world.
Right. So in the beginning, the application was purely about restoring a baseline of human function.
Let's look at the actual mechanism of those early medical implants, like the Utah array. Scientists realized something incredible. They realized that even if a spinal cord is completely severed, the brain's motor cortex, which is the area that plans and executes movement, is still perfectly active.
The brain is still trying to move the body.
Exactly. So they surgically placed a tiny grid of microelectrodes directly onto the surface of the brain. When the patient simply thought about moving their arm, those electrodes captured the raw biological event.
And by raw biological event, we are talking about a neural spike, right? Action potentials?
Yes. A neural spike is essentially a tiny burst of electricity firing across a synapse. It is the fundamental biological unit of human intention. The implant captures that wet biological electricity, and then algorithms decode the pattern. It translates the pure intention to move into digital code, bypassing the broken biological spinal cord entirely.
And sends that code to move a robotic limb or a cursor on a screen.
Exactly. It was an absolute miracle of modern medicine. But the mechanism itself, the act of translating biological intention into digital execution, it laid the groundwork for something much, much broader.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the technology did not stay confined to medical restoration. We've seen this massive, rapid pivot toward commercial augmentation.
The scope has completely changed.
Yeah, we aren't just drilling holes in skulls to place bulky electrode grids anymore. The hardware has evolved into these sleek neural laces and endovascular implants.
Devices that can actually be slipped into the brain through a vein.
Right, without even needing open brain surgery. Or they're integrated using these microscopic, flexible polymer threads placed by robotic surgeons. We are literally building high-bandwidth bridges between human biology and digital architecture for the everyday healthy user.
And that transition from a restorative medical device to a commercial product, that is a paradigm shift in human history. We are moving from healing the broken to augmenting the healthy.
It's a huge leap.
It is. When you use a minimally invasive thread to translate neural spikes into zeros and ones, you are no longer just fixing a deficit. You are unlocking raw cognitive potential. You're creating a direct line between the human mind and consumer hardware.
But, this raises a major red flag for me.
I can imagine.
When a technology shifts from, helping a paralyzed person communicate with their loved ones to becoming a commercial neural lace sold for convenience and cognitive speed, doesn't the human brain just become another consumer electronics market?
That's the danger, yes.
Are we turning our inner consciousness into a platform for commercial hardware? Because the moment you commodify the interface, it becomes subject to the exact same forces as your smartphone. Planned obsolescence, subscription tiers, and terrifyingly corporate data harvesting.
It absolutely becomes a platform, and that leads us to a staggering reality about these advanced commercial neural laces. Up until now, we've mostly discussed reading from the brain.
Right, capturing a neural spike.
Capturing it, translating it to digital code, and executing an action. That's essentially observation. But these advanced interfaces are not one-way streets. They are built on a read and write architecture.
Okay, I want to slow down here and really clarify the mechanics of this, because writing a thought sounds like pure science fiction, but it's a physical reality now. How exactly does a machine write to the biological brain?
It works by basically reversing the process we just discussed. If reading is capturing an electrical spike and turning it into digital code, writing is taking digital code, converting it into a highly targeted microcurrent, and injecting it directly into specific clusters of neurons.
Injecting it into the tissue.
Yes. And we actually have primitive versions of this already. Look at a cochlear implant. It doesn't just amplify sound. It bypasses the ear entirely and writes electrical signals directly to the auditory nerve, which the brain then interprets as sound.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it like that.
Right. Now take that concept and scale it up to the prefrontal cortex or the hippocampus.
So the machine is sending code back across the bridge, translating it into biological electricity, and literally firing it into your neural network. So it could stimulate the visual cortex to create a geometric shape in your field of vision, or stimulate the hippocampus to evoke a specific emotional state or a reconstructed memory.
Precisely. It is the direct alteration of your cognitive landscape by an external digital source. And we have to pair this read and write capability with what sits on the other end of that high bandwidth connection: artificial general intelligence.
The AGI.
Yes.
An intelligence that has access to the entirety of human knowledge and is capable of processing information billions of times faster than our biological tissue.
When you have seamless, instantaneous communication between the human brain and an AGI, the very limits of human intelligence fundamentally shift.
How does it actually look in practice?
Well, if you encounter a complex problem, you don't form a verbal question, type it into a search engine, and read the result. Your raw, pre-verbal inquiry, the literal neural spike of your confusion, is read by the interface. The AGI processes the solution instantly and writes the answer directly into your neural pathways.
So you wouldn't experience it as looking something up?
No, not at all. You would experience it as simply knowing the answer. The moment the question begins to form in your mind, the answer's already there. The AGI becomes a cognitive prosthesis. It acts as an invisible, silent extension of your own mind.
But look at the terrifying vulnerability of that two-way street. If the interface can write a thought into my brain so seamlessly that it feels exactly like a biological neural spike, how do I verify which thoughts are actually mine?
It is the million-dollar question.
I mean, for example, say I'm walking down the street and I suddenly have a profound, urgent craving for a specific brand of coffee. Did my biological body generate that craving based on fatigue, or did a commercial algorithm subtly stimulate a specific neural cluster to write that urge into my consciousness?
It's a chilling scenario.
If an idea blooms in your mind, how do you verify if you generated it naturally or if it was injected by the network?
The unsettling truth is, you might not be able to tell the difference. From the perspective of your conscious awareness, an internally generated neural spike and an externally injected microcurrent feel entirely identical.
That's terrifying.
It is. And that ambiguity brings us face to face with an existential risk: the blurring of individual consciousness.
We're talking about the collapse of the self.
Essentially, yes.
So what does this all mean? If we follow this logic, I'm trying to visualize how this actually feels to the user. Instead of the old cliche about a drop of water dissolving into the ocean, let's look at this like a computer network.
Okay.
Think about a standalone computer. It had its own local hard drive. Its memory is contained, bounded, and private. But the moment you plug that computer into a massive high-speed cloud network, the boundaries start to change. If the connection is fast enough, the computer's operating system can pull files from the cloud just as quickly as it can pull them from its own local drive. Eventually, the operating system can't distinguish between what is stored locally and what is on the server. The user's consciousness is that operating system.
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that structural analogy maps to human neurobiology.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, your identity, your local drive, is strictly bounded by your physical body. You end where your skin ends and where your skull encloses your brain.
The physical boundary.
Right. But if your brain is constantly, seamlessly exchanging data with a cloud-based AGI and simultaneously networked with thousands of other minds connected to that same cloud, where does your local storage end? Where do you end, and where does the rest of the network begin? The latency gap between your mind and the machine drops to zero.
And when that latency drops to zero, the perimeter of human consciousness essentially erases entirely. You have access to the processing power of a god, but you lose the isolation that makes you an individual. Is this the death of the human individual, or is it the birth of a superorganism? A true networked hive mind, where human and AI are indistinguishable.
It is the birth of a symbiotic organism. You inherit all the vast capabilities of that cloud architecture. But, and this is crucial, you also inherit every single one of its vulnerabilities.
Which brings us to the ultimate unavoidable implications of this deep dive. We really have to face what happens when the mind is no longer a closed system.
We do. We have to talk about three specific concepts: minds being hacked, upgraded, and downloaded.
Let's start with hacked. We all inherently understand the frustration of having a credit card stolen or, an email account breach. But what happens when the target of the hack is your actual perception of physical reality?
It represents the ultimate violation of autonomy. Because we established that the hardware can write to the brain, a malicious actor who breaches the security of your BCI isn't just stealing data.
They're changing your reality.
Exactly. They could alter your visual processing to hide physical objects from your sight. They could manufacture synthetic emotional responses, triggering intense fear or absolute trust toward specific individuals. They could even manipulate your motor cortex to alter your physical actions. The security of the firewall literally becomes a matter of psychological and physical survival.
And then there's the concept of being upgraded. This completely upends the socioeconomic structure of the entire human race.
It changes everything.
If cognitive processing power becomes something you can just purchase, if focus, memory retention, and computational speed are tied to the quality of the commercial hardware in your head, we're looking at a biological fracture.
A permanent divide.
Yeah. We will see a society violently split between biological, unmodified humans and augmented humans who pay a subscription fee for superior cognitive processing. It turns inequality into a biological certainty.
And that is exactly why this transition is so critical right now.
Yeah.
This is not a distant, abstract future. The hardware is being tested today. The algorithms are actively being refined. We are stepping over an evolutionary threshold as we speak. Humanity 2.0.
Right.
The integration of the human mind with digital architecture is actively underway. For you, the listener, navigating this reality is going to require an unprecedented level of critical thinking. You will need a deep philosophical grounding to maintain your sense of self when the physical boundaries of that self begin to dissolve.
We are stripping away the bottleneck of the flesh, and in doing so, we are exposing the private, localized human mind to the infinite open expanse of the machine network. It's an awe-inspiring leap, but it carries an incredibly heavy shadow.
It does.
And as we leave you to process the reality of the BCI revolution, I want to leave you with one final thought, building on that last concept. Downloaded. We've talked about reading neural spikes and translating them into digital code. If we take that to its absolute limit, if every synaptic connection, every memory, the very essence of your neurobiology can be perfectly mapped, translated into binary, and backed up to a cloud server, does your biological body even matter anymore?
Profound question.
If the physical brain rots away, but the servers housing your digital connectome remain powered on, are you technically immortal, or are you just a digital ghost? Just a string of code echoing forever in the cold architecture of a machine?
Thank you for joining us on this exploration.
Until next time, keep questioning the boundary of the self.